Laurie, good to see you. We've recently had a major season ticket being put forwards. What's the reaction been?
So far, thankfully, I think it's been really well received, and I'm really pleased about that because we spent a lot of time talking to our fan groups and getting feedback from supporters about what they wanted to see in terms of a season ticket plan going forward. And the rationale behind the Raised by Wolves initiative is really trying to engage a much wider fan base, a much younger fan base, and I suppose just from the mandate that we set ourselves 6 months ago in terms of trying to fill Molineux as quickly and as much as we can, the initiative really has that in mind. So it's about re-engaging with fans that have been away from Molineux for quite some time, trying to bring in brand new fans, and as I say, really bring in this generational culture that dad or mum comes with son and daughter, and granddad comes, and whilst I appreciate games move around a lot in terms of scheduling, but 3:00 on a Saturday at Molineux becomes, that's your sort of your football family time, and this becomes the real sort of focal point for the community.
Yeah, I mean, £23 for under 12s is incredible. £50 for under 17s, but it's the kind of money back that you'll give to other people if you reach a certain target that's probably stood out the most.
Yeah, and I guess again, there's a couple of things that we wanted to achieve with the plan. There's rewards that we want to give to people to come back and engage with us for the first time, but there's also ways in which we wanted to reward fans that have been with us for quite some time. And the difficulty is that we have a financial model that we ultimately have to try and adhere to at this moment in time, and ticketing revenue has become something that is a real integral part of our income stream. So what we couldn't do is do too much to alter that in respect of reducing it, but we wanted to do something that would increase the amount of fans that would get into the stadium, and on the basis of that, then by all means we'll reward them for doing that, and nothing would give me greater pleasure than when we reach that target, we then can start issuing the refunds to all those fans that have bought into the idea and want to support the team.
Because is that actually quite a hard balance to get? Because you mentioned how important ticket revenue is. There will always be a debate on if you charge more, you might get less, but you're still charging more as opposed to charging less now to get more people, more bums on seats.
Yeah, it's the difficult. It is the conundrum, and ultimately, I actually think our ticket pricing isn't necessarily far off being quite near sort of value for money anyway. And it's the old argument, if you turn up consistently and watch 0-0, then yeah, paying £380 or £400 a year becomes a harder pill to swallow. If you're coming and watching the Wolves Fulham 4-4 and on a regular basis, then it's reasonable value for money. So I actually think our ticketing pricing wasn't far off the mark, but clearly we have a disconnect at the moment with our fans, which is something that's evolved over the last sort of few seasons, if you like, or even maybe longer. And in order to sort of re-engage with those fans, we had to do something pretty evolutionary to say, look, we are on a journey. We're still in the early stages of that, but in the last few months, I think we've started to see what this football club could look like in the coming seasons. And it's a really exciting place to be at the moment. We've got a really good coaching set up. We've got a good management set up. We've got owners that are very, very keen to invest, as they've shown over the last couple of weeks. And the future is really bright. And now's the time to come and get on board with that and support the team. And we're prepared to reward the fans for doing that.
So on that basis, where does the 16,500 target sit in there? Because it's obviously a way to go up from last year or this season.
Yeah.
But the way you're talking suggests you think you're going to reach that comfortably.
I do. And I think the initial reaction that we've had from fans on forums and social media has been really positive. But also, if you look at the physical facts of the situation, as we have this interview today, we're on about 1,700 seasonal sales. This time last year, we were on about 450. So we're almost we're tracking at this stage, and we have been since the launch, somewhere between 300% and 400% up year on year. Now, I appreciate we've introduced quite a innovative and valuable offer to fans, but I think that represents the interest that ultimately fans have in coming back. But the other bit which really sort of backs the statement up is that about 38% of the season ticket purchases at this moment in time are brand new season ticket holders. They're not renewals. So these are people that have thought, do you know what, I think there is a reason to come back to Molineux. They've either been occasional match attendees so far this season, or they've been waiting for that reason to re-engage. And I think, again, the strategy around juniors and family and bringing the next generation of fans in, and how we're pricing that, is making it much easier for people to make that decision.
What about those who can't get season tickets, who can't commit to the entire season but will come to certain games? Is there anything that you're planning and thinking of to improve things for them?
There is. And again, I don't want to evade the question, but we are also looking at plans that we can develop around our match-to-match attendees, and that's something that we'll sort of communicate out to the fan base in due course. I think at the moment we're concentrating on our seasonal sort of base and our seasonal fans, and because ultimately if we can increase those and guarantee that we've got ourselves a much higher base of core fans that we know will come week in, week out and support the team, then that puts us in a much stronger position. But equally, I'm aware of there's a number of reasons why fans can't get to every single game of the season, and we've also got a duty of care to say, well, look, we'll make it as easy for you and as financially fair and as financially possible for them to come into the games as well. And that is something that we are looking at and we'll be communicating in due course.
Because you know that, I mean, finances is a part of the reason probably why people may have stopped coming in the past and why people can't always make it to games. There are other reasons around the match day experience. Is there anything in there? I know people have questioned you a lot on this at the Fans Parliament about trying to improve the overall thing that's not just on the pitch. Yeah,
and again, I'm acutely aware that there's a number of things that fans have been disgruntled about or have dissatisfaction in. One has clearly been there's been an element around pricing, and one's about the actual sort of football performance. So we're certainly delivering, I feel, on both of those aspects at this moment in time. And then the other thing is around the fan experience and how we engage with our fans when they're in the stadium. And I don't want to commit to anything right here in this interview, but we're working hard in terms of improving the whole fan engagement. For all football clubs, it's the holy grail. How do you get fans here earlier? How do you engage them? How do you get them to stay longer? And again, we're aware of that, and we're aware that we probably fall below expectations on that moment in time. But it's a bit of a marathon. It's not a sprint. We're looking at a lot of different options all the time, and I think we'll be able to come out in the very near future and again highlight some of the key strategies and some of the key plans that we want to deploy for next season, and I've got every confidence that again the fans will be really excited about what we want to do for next season.
Let's talk about the general state of the club. Obviously you've been in the role a good couple of months now. How have you found it? Really good.
And I know every day's not plain sailing. We started the season probably not as quickly or as positively as we wanted. If you look at the first few months as a collective, I know we had some fantastic results within that, but as a collective, sort of, if we sort of stood back and said, right, how do we evaluate that? And we did around sort of October time. We weren't necessarily as happy as we wanted to be, so we made changes. But I think in terms of as an overall 6 month sort of appraisal, if you like, I'm extremely happy where we are at this moment in time. We made changes because we felt they needed to be done, and we reflected on those. And then when we reflect on those now, I think they were the right changes that we made, and they've responded really well. We've got Paul's come in, and in a short period of time, he's got the team playing a really exciting style of football. We're filling up slowly but surely. Our attendances are increasing as well, which I think is a sign of the type of football we're playing. The playing squad is developing and improving all the time, and again through the work that we've done in the recent transfer window, I believe that's we're now again with a much a more improved squad, and just some of the standout victories over the last sort of 5-6 weeks. It's a really exciting place to be within the club, and the Stoke result, the Liverpool result have really given us a massive leg up. We've got a huge opponent in the next round of the FA Cup. It's been nearly 9 years since we've been at this stage in the Cup, which again is really galvanising the team, the fans, the staff. So where we are at the moment, which is why And look, the ticket initiative that's been in the planning for weeks and weeks. So it's beautifully coincidental that it's all sort of come to a crescendo at the same time, if you like. But it's one of the reasons why I suppose I'm even more comfortable that we're starting to. The club and the fan base is waking up and stirring, and I think there's a huge amount of potential in where we can go from here.
Because obviously you'll be aware there's been some concern of fans from what happened in the first couple of months of Fosun's reign here at Molineux, and you mentioned the changes and everything, and Jeff even mentioned, I think, in his statement when he announced Paul about learning the lessons. Do you feel like the teething problems, if that's a good term to use, is now past us?
Yeah, I do. That's not to say, I'd love to say we're never going to make another mistake again. I think every club will make mistakes, whether that's on the field, off the field. Every business makes mistakes. I think the key thing is how you then respond to those and how you react to those. And you're right, at the time when we appointed Paul, Jeff was pretty open around the fact that we hadn't got it completely right at the start. But I think the plan that we've now initiated in response to that is working extremely well. We know we're going to have a huge challenge through the rest of the season to get to where we potentially feel we may get to. But the plan that we sort of put in place is working, and we're not afraid to make the changes if we need to make the changes. And yeah, I think, again, Jeff would probably reiterate that the first few months didn't quite go to plan, but we're in a much more positive place now, and we're really happy with the setup that we've got now within the club.
So is Fosun's interest still as strong as it was when they first arrived? Do you still hear from Jeff and Sky and the other representatives?
Yeah, without question. I think that nothing at all has wavered in terms of their ambition, their desire. That would be typified by the fact that they've smashed our transfer record twice in one season, the most recent of which was, where are we now, 72 hours ago. So if anything is a statement of intent, then I think that's it. They haven't been here for the last few games. It's Chinese New Year, which is a seasonal festival celebration in China, which is the equivalent of our Christmas. So, but we speak daily, if not every other day. We were in very close contact during January, as you can imagine, and their commitment is unwavering. There's still this is a long-term project for them, and that any frustration that we may have had earlier in the season didn't diminish the desire to succeed, and getting to the Premier League is still their A1 priority.
So if that doesn't happen this season, which, whilst it's still a possibility, is now less than likely, how does that affect the club moving forwards? Does the plan that maybe was for a year easily move into a second or a third year?
Yeah, and I think the first thing to say is that they're completely at ease with where we are in terms of they realise that the ambition we wanted to fulfil this season was, first of all, was an extremely difficult one, made harder by the way in which we started the season. I think we should also add that where we sit here and now, mathematically, it's more than possible that we could do that. It's going to be an extreme challenge to get to where we want to be, not least because we need to ensure that we continue with our own level of consistency and maintain that performance level, which I'm confident we could do, but then we're also reliant on other teams above us not maintaining that level of consistency. But they're at complete ease with what the ambition is of the club in terms of sort of either for next season and beyond. And it's, I think it's simply a case of, right, we'll just recalibrate. If we don't get up this season, we're focusing on building a squad so that we'll have strong momentum come the end of the season. I think we'd like to be in a position where we're doing the least amount of squad development during the next transfer window. So Kevin and the team are already proactively looking at targets where we feel we need to strengthen the team when we get to May, June, July, so that again that process is done much more smoother than it was last year. And that wasn't anyone's fault last year, that was a timing situation. But I think in general, everyone is pretty clear. If we don't do it this year, we know exactly what the expectations would be for next year.
Because you mentioned smashing the transfer record, doing it twice in 6 months, spending that kind of money must have a knock-on effect around the rest of the club, doesn't it?
Well, we have a process where we're forecasting and budgeting, 1, 2, 3 years in advance. I suppose the two key things around making an investment like that is, one, it really makes quite a big statement around the owner's ambition in order to take the team forward and to drive the quality and of the squad forward. But equally, the deal with Helder, for example, is one that we've structured quite favourably in Wolves' favour. So it's a 4.5-year deal. So we can structure the finances of that deal over from a reporting point of view. We can structure over the term of the deal, and without getting into the intricate details of what's been agreed with Benfica, we've structured a payment term that we're pretty comfortable with, and again, it's just a huge statement from Fosun and how they want to bring in the best possible players that we can to the club, and when they integrate well with the squad, we'll make the move to ensure that they're a permanent and positive feature of how we'll take the team forward.